Let's cross to Canberra now and catch up with the Agriculture Minister, David Littleproud. David, thanks for joining us. Can you tell me whether you believe any Nationals voters would have cast their vote at the last election expecting the Nationals to endorse net zero by 2050?
No, but the world's changed. The stark reality is we live in a global community, and particularly for rural voters, we rely heavily not only on finance to be cheap, but we rely on our commodity prices not to be tariffed. Unfortunately, our place in the world is that we're 26 million people. We produce enough food for 80 million people. So if we don't engage with the world, we don't trade with the world, we don't need the number of farmers we've got, and we don't need the communities to support them. So it's a wicked issue. But the world has changed, and if we don't change with it, the financial burden is going to be borne on your mortgage, whether that's a business loan or a home loan, and your commodity is going to receive less. Or we can look to a pragmatic way using technology, not taxes, to try and reduce that and help you make a dollar.
But aren't you effectively saying that this pledge, moving in this direction so dramatically, is not in Australia's national interest, but we have to do it because other forces, external forces, be they the financiers or the United Nations or the Europeans, are forcing us to do this?
Well, you've got to understand your place in the world. Unfortunately, we're only 26 million people. We don't get to make the rules. We're not a country of a couple hundred million people or 1.3 billion. And markets are moving and capital flows are important, not just private capital, but also government bonds. That's a practical reality. It's great to live in the simplistic politics and say that we can tell the world to take a running jump. You simply can't. We're not big enough. And so we've had to make a pragmatic decision about how do we protect that. Now, what we got out of the technology roadmap is a pathway to achieve that without putting the financial burden back on people in regional Australia. And what the National Party's been able to secure is some safeguards to ensure not only the jobs that are there now that we can protect, but we got an opportunity to grow new ones.
You've also got your Resources Minister, Keith Pitt, moved back into Cabinet. Now, he's also been opposed to net zero by 2050. Is this just a way of keeping him quiet, keeping him on message?
No, this is about making sure that the 260,000 Australians that work in the resource sector have a voice at the table, that make sure that at the Cabinet table we're making these decisions and making sure the implementation of the technology roadmap ensures that that's being protected, the mechanisms are put in place and safeguards actually come to fruition. And I think you need to have the Resource Minister there to be able to give that oversight, to give that input, to protect those jobs and to grow those jobs. And that's what you'll see tomorrow when the technology roadmap is unveiled. It's a pragmatic look at how do we achieve this, living up to international commitments, but protecting the jobs we've got and trying to grow new ones.
Well, I don't envy you your task of explaining to your constituents why you've had to do this and who's been pressuring the government into doing this. But let me just show you something that the Greens leader Adam Bandt had to say today.
The Glasgow summit is demanding the whole world lift its 2030 climate targets before it's too late to stop runaway global warming. You boast of meeting and beating your 2030 goals, but it's easy to beat a terrible target set by Tony Abbott. Have you given up on keeping global warming below 1.5 degrees, condemning regional Australia to extreme droughts, floods and sea level rises?
Adam Bandt there, focusing on 2030 targets. I showed our viewers at the start of the program how Chris Bowen, Labor's climate spokesman, has been doing that as well. This is your real political opening, isn't it? Because what's happened today is 2050 is off the target. You're sticking by 28% reductions by 2030. Labor are stuck surely on 45% reductions by 2030. This is what the argument's going to be in the lead up to the next election, isn't it? The 2030 target and how you get there.
Well, this is what counts. I mean, you don't change the goalposts during a game of football. You keep them where they are and you keep trying to score in as many goals as you can. And we're going to meet that target. In fact, we're going to beat it. And we haven't slowed down. We've done that and we haven't imposed a tax while achieving it. But the Labor Party have already signed up to this. And then they've already signed up to net zero by 2050 without even telling you how you're going to get there and who pays for it. So this is what the Australian people want. I mean, I know we're in a vexed position here, but you've got to be honest with the Australian people. You've got to look them square in the eye and say how we're going to get there and who pays for it. At least we're prepared to do that. And while simplistic politics at the right of us might try and erode some of our vote, we've got to be honest with the Australian people. We are part of a global community. And if you want to sign up to 2030, more than what we've already achieved, then you've got to tell us very clearly how you're going to pay for it. Because last time, Bill had a crack at that and he didn't tell anybody. He wasn't game to tell anybody about who was going to pay for it, how much it was.
Well, he didn't know.
And they've gone down the same path.
He didn't know, yeah.
Well,
thanks.
And I suspect they don't know now.
We will find out. I can't wait to find out more details about your plan tomorrow. Thanks for joining us, David.
Thanks, mate.
Agriculture Minister there, David Littleproud. This is going to be fascinating now, mark my words. There's 2030 now is the argument. Forget about 2050. That's off the agenda. The argument now will be about Labor's higher targets for 2030, and they're going to have to explain to people how they're going to do that. Tomorrow we'll hear from the government how they intend to progress all of this to 2050.